All right, everybody, welcome to another session of Cross Country Talk. We're right now, pretty much every Monday or Wednesday, we have a special guest every week, and we've had some remarkable guests in the past. But this one today, I find me personally really special because I find this gentleman here my mentor at one point. I know for several years I went to their cross-country camp up at Oak Ridge High School. I was working at one point at a running shop here in town called Runner's Market. I know some of you guys probably still go there to get spikes and training shoes. But as I was working there during the summertime, I was very fortunate to find out how the background of this awesome operation went between Oak Ridge High School. And we got here today is Coach Alan Etheridge. He is retired since 2016, but he is not forgotten. I can promise you that. I was sitting in on a coaches meeting about a month and a half ago, and I think all 5 coaches brought Coach Alan Etheridge up at some point or another throughout the entire state of Tennessee. So we have a legendary coach here today with a wonderful resume in cross-country track. He was the captain of the 1983 state championship Oak Ridge team, where he finished 6th overall. His wife, Suzanne, also ran, was an all-state runner in cross-country, and his daughter and son were runners at Oak Ridge. He was fortunate enough to coach both of them, and both of them were all-state runners. Also, his boys' teams that he coached, he had a Nike Cross Nationals team, which we'll dive into that shortly, in 2007, with the overall region winner was McLean O'Donnell, a Nike Cross Nationals finish. Now, this is still the East region only team to ever qualify for Nike Cross Nationals. So at the time, watching this develop in 2007, we didn't realize the magnitude it would be until 2020. It's still the only team that's ever qualified. His state champion boys were 2005, 2006, and 2007. His runner-up teams were 2004, 2009, and 2015. Great American Great American champs in 2007. That bumped them up to the #1 ranking going into the region meet in 2007. And of course, they were the region champions going into Nike Cross Nationals. And his girls have also fantastic resume there. Girls state champions in 2007, 2009, and 2010. That year in 2007, the girls and the boys were both state champions. It's still currently the last time that in the AAA Big School Division that both the boys and the girls from the same school won the state championships. Runner-up, 2006, 2008, and of course, the girls were Great American, 3rd place overall, Great American 2007. The only coaching staff in AAA history to win both girls and boys state champions, and together with a combined score of 91 points. Pretty impressive, Coach. We're really glad to have you on today, and we're going to be kind of diving into a lot of stuff, and I hope a lot of our viewers today understand the magnitude of what you brought to the table for when you were coaching back in the heyday. And so, going over some of your stuff today, I'd like to start the conversation with the importance of the full team commitment. I kind of want to talk about that. And Coach, how did you get everybody on board? When did you really start the process to make sure a team has to be bought in?
That's the kids who were on the team would probably look at it differently from how I would look at it, and they'd have something different to say. My coach Jim Magnamy started doing a cross country camp when I was a kid. In fact, my wife and I met at cross country camp in 1980. Watch out, it might happen to you. But the thing that I got from Coach Mack was that the running that you do as a team will only happen if you're doing a lot of other things together because you're friends. You like to be with one another. So, you're swimming or riding bikes or going to movies or bowling or whatever it is that you do, playing video games. And so it starts from there. And I always thought that was a really, really bright way to go about it. That if you're running with your best friends, you're way more likely to give a rat's butt about how you do as a team. So it really started from there. You talk about camp. And I did 8 cross-country camps at Pickett State Park. You were there for most of them, probably. And God, I can't even believe that we did that, because the liability of having 100 people up at the group camp and running along those cliffs and the swimming and all the various things that we did. But it was that, though, that cemented the team bond for the year, because they slept in the same area, they ate their meals together, they got mad at each other, and they fought, and whatever it was that they did all those things together. And so
right.
And the funny thing about that, and I know you know this, that the kids who are watching know this, because your classes will be this way, is that there's a time period, there's an arc where it works, and in the beginning, you're getting to know each other and you're starting to figure things out. And you hit this sweet spot where you're really a team, and everything's great for about a month. I think it can last for about a month, and my classes are often that way. And then you get this time where you're just sort of sick of each other, and you're tired of each other, and you're griping, and it's time to take a break. And so for us, it was always be aware of where we are in that arc, and be able to predict, how you can respond, and try to get them to the right place at the right time.
Right. Well, that kind of dives into your early years of really, coaching, when you started getting into a lot of this, your state run. And so we're going to kind of talk about a little bit about your 2005 team. And I want a lot of you guys, if you guys happen to tune in, tune out, whatever, I want you to kind of pay really close attention to this part right here, because 2005, Oak Ridge, they had a couple seniors on the team, but they weren't their top 5. I think they were in their top 5, of course, but they had a lot of youth in their top 7. Their top runner scored 29th overall, and they had a spread of about 18 to 19 seconds between their number 1 and their number 5. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and screen share you guys just real quick here. This results, okay? I want you guys to take a look at this. All right, the importance of this team here. Their number 1 runner, Chris Cole, placed 19th as a team, but 29th overall. As you see right here, 29th overall. I'm sorry, right here. 29th overall, but yet 19. There was a lot of individual qualifiers that year that finished in the top 28. So we want to kind of talk about what did you going into the state meet, and what we would like to know first and foremost, how did you get everybody bought in and understanding, right before the meet, that we have a shot of actually winning this race. So can you kind of dive into that just real quick?
Yeah. Let me go back to the result where you had Chris highlighted.
Right there.
There's a whole bunch of factors here, but what I want to point out about Chris finishing 29th is that the year before, I think he finished 9th. And Chris didn't finish 29th because he couldn't do any better. He finished 29th because that's where he chose to finish. And it'll make sense in just a minute.
Yeah.
We ran the last race of the day that day. And if you've been at Percy Warner Park on a clear day when it's a little bit warm, what you know is that it's dusty, it's dry, yes, and there's no shade. It's windy.
Yes.
And so conditions were just brutal. In fact, I would say that those conditions that day were the worst I ever saw at the state cross country meet.
Right.
As many years as I went. And we knew that we had a shot at winning. And I didn't really realize what was going to happen. I thought it was going to come down to us and Bolton and Brentwood, and it did. But Brentwood's number 1 guy, Tom DeVinny, who's a really, really good runner. I think he finished it somewhere in the top 15 maybe 11th, something like that at Foot Locker South that year. I mean, he was really good.
Yeah.
He was up at the front, and at the 2-mile mark, he passed out. So that's Brentwood. That's Brentwood's race. I mean, Brentwood would have won. They would have beat us because they're going to score number 1 on the front.
Right.
Had Tom finished that race. What we talked about that day was something that we had done all year long, which was to be really, really conservative and run what if you've seen Running with the Buffaloes is the Colorado race, or Red Running with the Buffaloes. And I've always liked that concept in cross country, and it drives some people crazy. But that is, and we experimented with it that year, including at Great American, where it killed us. And that is getting off a little slow, getting out a little bit slow, and allowing your body to adjust to the pace and see what other people are doing, and then not really start to move into the second half of the race.
Right.
If you ever watch Colorado at the NCAA regions and at the NCAA meet, it's how they run every single time. And that's what I really wanted to do, and our guys had practiced it and they agreed to do it. But the big thing on that day was that Chris, and Chris was a rascally guy. Bobby knows Chris. Chris, one of my favorite. He was a 155 800-meter runner by the time he graduated. 3-time All-State cross-country runner. Hilarious and savage and sarcastic and bitter and just an all-around interesting guy. He had convinced the other guys, hey, we got to get out slow and we got to be conservative and see what happens. And so that really came down, honestly, to the kid on the team making the right call. And I can't emphasize enough that wasn't me making that call. That was the kids on the inside realizing what they needed to do.
I mean, all 7, all pretty much bought in on working together as a pack. And
they loved winning.
And the one thing going to your camps and stuff was, they brought a vibe that they loved to win, like you stated. But they were competitors, but they were loose. They had fun. They did some different stuff that I probably still don't see to this day with other teams. But wrestling on the back of the bus, I always hear you talk about in the past, or, just great fun things that they would do to kind of keep loose and keep the edge off. But like I said here, the remarkable thing here is what I love is that the 20-second spread. Now, when I say that for you young athletes out there, talking about the 20-second spread, it's their number 1 runner and their number 5. And their number 1 and their number 5 was only 20 seconds apart. So 30-second overall team-wise. Now, I think it was a little farther back. It was like 40+. But 30-second overall and 19. So there's your points right there. As you can see right here, how tight that is. In a race like that, right there, where you have so many teams that are really, really close like that, it's great to see the team unity come together, their friendships and stuff.
And if you look at the results, I would guess that the course ran a little bit slower. That was actually the first year that we ever ran 5K at the state meet. So that course was a little bit different from how it is now, and it ran a little bit slower. But we used to say that you had to be on the right side of 1730, because after 1730, of course, 10 seconds means like 25 points.
Right.
And so I think Ethan was our number 5 that day. Whoever it was that was the number 5, they were just right there on the good side of that big point thing, and that's what made the difference. So it was really, honestly, the number 4 or 5 guys that won that for us.
And one of the things, about that race also, we talked about early on was how young everybody was on the team. You had 2 seniors, I think Sean, and you had another Sean Hackstrom and another senior on your team that day. And then after that, it was pretty much everybody was underclassmen. And
sophomores.
What was remarkable is, like, now you're setting the stage. You're setting the stage. 4 out of the top 7 happened to be on the team for the next year where you won state again. And then winning state the next year was great. But then the following year, when you have a loaded team, it's probably one of the most loaded teams you've had or ever had. And now you're looking at for you youngsters out there, a thing called Nike Cross Nationals. It's something you can look forward to when you're in high school outside of the state championship. It's bigger than state. If you go to Foot Locker finals or you go to Nike Cross Nationals, you're pretty much guaranteed you're going to be going somewhere and running in college. You're a big deal. And so this team came together. They bought in that summer, 2007. Kind of talk about that when you went up to the boys team and said, all right, we're not going just to win state this year. We're going bigger.
Honestly, I remember that really clearly, and it was difficult. In 2005, as we were talking about before, it became really clear that we could be good enough eventually. I knew how good they were, those sophomores, that we could be eventually good enough to contend for that Nike Cross Nationals. So the next year we traveled a lot, ran some big meets, spent a lot of money. And I remember at camp in 2007, we had our team meeting, and we sat the guys down in the bunkhouse, and Ed, Coach Wright, who coaches at Etheridge now, Coach Roberts, who's the Tennessee Wesleyan University coach now, and I sat the kids down and we said, all right, guys, this is what we're after. You guys have gotten yourself in the position where we think that we can qualify, and this is what we're looking for you to do. And I'll never forget this. I'll never forget this. One of them, who's one of the best runners on the team, said, but I just want to be a senior and do our fun senior stuff. And we were like, whoa, this is so deflating. Because I thought they'd just jump on that. I mean, I thought that this would be, God, we're all together. This is going to be the greatest thing ever.
Yeah.
Do this with us. And they wanted to be seniors. And the lesson there is that they were 17.
Yeah.
And they did want to be seniors. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with doing all those senior things.
Oh, yeah.
I could see where their priorities were.
Yeah.
And so we worked with that. And what was really, really important, and I can't emphasize this enough, and to be honest, it was right around that time that a lot of different programs, I was one of them, but we started to look at how do you peak for what you want to peak for instead of trying to be good all the time. And so we agreed on the front end, our training, our mental, the way that we dealt with things mentally, our team strategy, everything was about November and December. And if we lost in September, we lost in September. And none of our workouts were going to be that hard until we got to where we needed them to be kind of hard. And so we lost at Macaulay. We got fourth at Macaulay to Baylor, Parkview, Georgia, and Hoover, Alabama. We went up to Maymont in Virginia, huge meet in Virginia, and got third or fourth there, got beat by Medina, Ohio, and Oakton, Virginia, and somebody else. And that was okay. The guys were okay with that because, we were having fun and they knew that we didn't have to win that stuff.
Right.
And so then when we went down to Great American, we wanted to win Great American.
Right.
And that was where we put some eggs in that basket. We went down and we won Great American. And if you've ever been to Hoover, Alabama, the field has a big start. And I found out the score and I went running and frolicking across the field like an idiot. But it was at that point that we knew and they knew, hey, this thing is real.
Yeah.
It's real. We really can not just three-peat.
Right.
We were the first team in AAA to three-peat. Siegel has done it now. It seems like Brentwood has done it. But also we make it to Nike.
Right.
And it was putting things off. It was encapsulating our intensity in just a few weeks' time. That was really important.
And then you go on to you win state, and then the team came together, had a great state meet. But then you're coming home, I'm sure they're celebrating that. All right, we just won state. The year's passed. That's when the season's done. That's when most seasons are already over with, and it's like, all right, time to go home and hang out with your family and stuff.
Yeah.
But then you got, I think that year, 5 more weeks, if I'm not mistaken, was 5 more weeks left, and it was time to motivate those kids and have to get right back up and go instead of celebrating. So kind of talk about how you kind of, you focused on getting them motivated. Trying to get them engaged and keep them engaged was big key. So
thank goodness for Bobby Holcomb, because at that time there was and that was really kind of the beginning of your high school coaching career, I think.
It was.
As I recall.
Yes.
At that time, there was a dead period, and I couldn't coach him. And that didn't mean that I couldn't come up with workouts or things, but I couldn't legitimately coach him. And so Coach Holcomb here agreed to coach him, and that was kind of a trial by fire because those guys were bananas. I mean, they were crazy.
Oh yeah.
And so a lot of that really, and I think back now that this was really important, that having Bobby with that different personality from mine, different point of view on things from mine, different traditions, fresh, everything was fresh, might have been the thing that kept them engaged. Their workouts weren't super tough because they didn't need to be. That was the first year that we did a time trial at Oak Ridge High School track, just you and me and me and
8 or 9 kids.
8 or 9 kids and coach from UT, Coach Watts, George Watts, up in the stands watching. And then it was on. So, I mean, it's just really, they were so talented. Thank goodness they were so talented that they just had to ball all that up into that one day down in Hoover, Alabama.
I just remember this is, getting to know their personality. Again, I know there was a couple incidents where I know, well, for one, every single day I think I called Coach Etheridge because as a coach, this was his baby. This was I was just there to kind of just hopefully maintain and make sure they got to where they needed to get.
Get a free plane ticket to Oregon.
Go to Oregon. But the main thing was just keeping those kids engaged and sharp. And I remember every single night having to figure out the personalities. And I know I came to a couple practices throughout the fall and then came to the summer camp for Runners Market Spikes purposes, but I would stick around for about 3 or 4 extra days just to get the experience and understand the kids. But being there when they're in the peak of the moment and being a coach, I just remember going home at night and calling Coach Etheridge and like, well, this is happening. How do I need to handle this? Or what direction, and that was the funnest part about it all on my end, looking back in was learning what it's like to be at that peak moment at one of the best moments of those kids' life, your life, and just trying to get that perspective on how you're guiding your kids and to get them to peak at the right time. And so we basically go to Hoover, Alabama, and I remember right off the bat, I mean, you were saying right off the bat, this is going to be tight. This is going to be close. Talk about that Hoover race because you had a nice top stick that day, and then of course the rest of the team came together too.
That was the first year that you got to earn your way without being picked by a committee. So you win the race, you qualify automatically. We were ranked first. I think the Baylor might have been ranked third. I know they finished third.
Yep.
And then Oakland, Virginia was ranked up there. It was an interesting course because the first 2 miles were flat and fast and had hay bales.
Yes.
Remember the hay bales?
Oh, yes. They tried to make it European, so.
Oh, it's crazy. Then the last mile had just an unbelievably steep, long, brutal hill.
Right.
And I thought McLean could win. These are the kids we're talking about. McLean O'Donnell was a 9:04, 4:13 guy. He ran at Texas A&M. I think he ran 8:0 something for 3K when he's at Texas A&M. 4:01 mile. He was a real thing. Number 2, Emerson Peacock was 152.20 in high school for 800. State 800 meter champion. He was a NCAA finalist in the 800 meters, ran 147 running at UT. That's my number 1 and number 2 guys.
Yeah.
Number 3 guy was a 155 guy who ran at American University. Guy that didn't even make my top 5 was John Sharp, who was the 2009 state champion.
Yeah, he's a freshman.
9:17, 3,200 meter runner. So our Phil Reamer, our number 4 guy, didn't run track that year, but he was another 9:15 guy. So The amount of talent that we had was really unbelievable all there at once. You know, they ran a conservative race that day because the objective was just to get second.
Mm-hmm.
And I will never ever second guess trying to get second when all you're trying to do is qualify.
Right.
The only thing that matters is qualifying, then the only thing that matters is qualifying.
Right.
And so I was always that way with sprint relays as well. You know, if your objective is to make the final, then yeah, it's nice to have a great lane, but ultimately it's great to just make the final.
Yes.
So, we ran to get second, and it just so happened that while we had a pretty average day, the other teams really didn't have a good day. Oakton ran terrible. They just did. They should have been there with us, and they didn't run well. Baylor actually ran pretty well, and I think they were about 30 points behind us.
Right.
What I remember thinking about that was, wow, we've been plotting this for 3 years. We've been trying to get here for 3 years. I can't believe this is happening.
And that's something right there to kind of, you know, for you youngsters at home, seeing this is that, you know, your 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th grade, you know, you may have a bad year. You may have just a bad race or a bad workout or something like that. And I can guarantee you, Coach, you probably can vouch for this. A lot of those kids on that Nike Cross National team probably had some horrible workouts, probably had some horrible running streaks. But yet at the same time, they all came together also at the same time and to kind of build on it. And I
think that's really interesting because even if you look at some of our area Foot Locker qualifiers, somebody, you know, Aaron Templeton didn't make it all 4 years.
Mm-mm.
He progressively got better till his junior, senior years. Matt Sonnenfeld didn't make it all 4 of his years. It was a matter of taking the steps all along to finally get there that got those people what they were after.
And that's a great thing for some of you youngsters is you have something to kind of chase. Not only you may be a state champion. I know we have some of these people in the KYA and possibly at Webb, and then also, you know, other athletes that are going to be listening in throughout the state that you may be a state champion, but you also have other stuff you can also chase. And it starts whenever you put it into your head and you start investing into it. And I think the great thing about Coach Etheridge here is he planted that seed extremely early, you know, and actually started just talking about it. Wasn't putting pressure on them, but you just start talking about it. You just, hey, did you guys see this Nike Cross Nationals team? Check out how good they are. And then it's like, and then you start pushing buttons here and there. And that's what a lot of times you got to do to yourself. Some of you athletes out there, you got to kind of focus on a little bit on, all right, what do I really want? You know, I got to really kind of check out some of these new websites, you know, and how can I see how other people train? And that's what a lot of them did is Coach Etheridge was great about showing results, you know, hey, this is where we got to go. This is who we're competing with. And being a fan at that time frame and just looking in, Coach Etheridge did a remarkable job of just keep planting that seed, keep watering the plant, keep chipping away. And then when you guys won region, I think one of the most remarkable things was watching both you and Ed Wright with the biggest tears coming out of y'all's eyes. It was just that right then, you know, made it just like, wow, they're heading to Oregon.
And you know what, you said that about the pressure. My guys were gamers. They felt pressure, but the gun goes off. They're playing the game to win.
Right.
And I love that about them. And that was one of the things that it is teachable, but also it's how they learned how to deal with pressure themselves. If they failed, they failed. Sometimes they lost and they were okay with that. But what really mattered to them is they wanted to win. They wanted to win as much as any group I have ever seen in my life. They wanted to win. And so pressure was just a thing. It was I don't know. It didn't affect them in the way that I've seen it affect some people.
Talk about now they get the nationals. You know, it's big. They get there, and you know, first thing off the plane, you know, everybody, you know, everything's all taken care of for these kids, and they go out there and they're going on Nike's campus. Kind of paint that picture, Coach, if you don't mind, when they're out there and they're with the at the time it was 22 teams, if I'm not mistaken. Am I correct? 21, 22 teams.
Yeah.
They're with the 22 best teams in the nation. and they're all together at one. And then you go on Nike's campus. Talk about that experience.
Wow. So there's a video out there somewhere with Coach Roberts. There's this moment where you walk in, Bobby, I'm sure you were there. You walk into the big meeting room, and it's where they swag you up. And it was, as Coach Roberts said, it was swagalicious. Because you walk in and there's just box after box of shoes and spikes and uniforms, and they had foosball tables and ping pong tables and video games. At the time it was probably a PS1 set up.
Yeah.
And for my guys, what was more important than anything else was that they met the Collinsville girls in the airport and hung out with them in the airport. And then they went straight for all the other girls' teams as soon as we got onto the Nike campus. I mean, realistically, and I knew this was going to happen, and I know you knew this was going to happen, making it was the win. And there was no way they were going to have their best race when we got out there, and they didn't. But they had so much – it was so much fun. We met Bernard Lagat. We met Alan Webb when he was still in his prime. Shalane Flanagan when she was had just turned professional. Met her a couple of times. She was really nice. I met Bernard Lagat and all of his wife and kids.
Yeah.
It was I don't know. It was they took care of us. It was crazy.
Yeah.
Now the course. You remember the course? The course was at Portland Meadows, the horse racing track.
Yes.
Portland, Oregon, it rains a lot. And it's cold, and that horse racing track was underwater. And it was so muddy. There was one place where they had to run for, 400 meters where there was knee-deep water.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, it was completely insane.
I think it was one of the best things I think I've ever seen. It was a true cross-country race. They went over hay bales, and they went in the mud. Yeah. They went up and down mounds. It was so rainy and cold. I remember just being cold that the horse racing track had like a cover, and it was like inside of a big glass building. You can actually watch it from inside, and majority of the fans watched it from there where they had heated, and it was kind of like watching a racetrack, horse racing match, but you could just watch it out on the infield. And then that was probably one of the most remarkable things, was just seeing the experience of those kids and watching you coach and staff, and just watching it all come together and how you still kept them engaged and in tune. They still ran respectable. If I'm not mistaken, McLean O'Donnell finished top 10. And
yeah, so he was an All-American. At one point at the 1K mark, we were in 5th. And so I had delusions of grandeur. I mean, we're getting a podium. We're going to get a trophy. And then by the time we got to the next K, it was like, where's Oak Ridge? I mean,
they got excited.
yeah. But McLean ran well. Chris Derrick won the race that day. Of course, Chris Derrick's gone on to a really great pro career with the Bowerman Group. And that set McLean up to have a very good senior track season and be able to run at Texas A&M.
That's awesome. Last thing, Coach, and then we'll let you get back to your gardening. We know you're retired and gardening, and probably you got a son that's still got one more year, correct? Or is he all done?
Yeah, he's going to be a senior at UT Chattanooga.
Yes, I'm sure you're going to be planning your travels to go and watch him at running cross country at UTC. But if you got one advice at the end to all of these athletes here, what would be a good advice for everyone moving forward, just, for cross country or track?
I'm going to assume that you're running cross country because you think running is fun, and because being on a team with other people who think running is fun is also fun, and that you like making great memories. The very best thing about cross country, in my view, is the memories. And I have great memories from seasons where we did not win state. We did not win region. We might not even have qualified for state because there were a few of those years. But I have such fond and great memories of the process of being involved with a team of people that care about one another and are having fun together. And if you're doing that, if you're having fun while you're running, then the running results, if you have enough talent and enough drive and enough willpower to put in the training, the running results can happen. And that's I know that's what you're after. That's what you want. one of the main reasons you're doing it. But 10 years down the road, what you're left with is the memory. So I hope you have fun.
Excellent, Coach. Now, everyone, I hope you guys take some pieces away from this today, listening to the history of our sport. That's the one thing we wanted to paint the picture is like basketball, football, baseball, you get to see over and over a lot of movies, a lot of different movies, but in our sport, there's not as many out there. And the reason why we're doing this throughout the summer is we can have great coaches like Coach Etheridge on here to kind of paint that picture of, hey, we got a lot of success in our area. We have a lot of future here that we can take and learn from the past. And I think it's remarkable what you have done to kind of help make not only athletes in this area better, Coach, but you also have made coaches even better in this area too, and stepped up their game. So we appreciate your time, and we appreciate, giving back, and look forward to chatting with you down the road. Hope to see you at a race. Does anyone, before we get off, have any questions for Coach? This is the area where a lot of times, none of them, they're all so shy.
That's like when the bell's about to ring and the teacher says, hey, you got any questions? And the kids are like, no.
Any question whatsoever? Coach, one question. How many miles a week did you have those say the senior years? How many miles a week did they run?
There's a range. So John Sharp, the high mileage guy, and he got up to about 75 or 80 his senior year, 4-year progression. The Nike Nationals team, the biggest mileage week we did was about 55. Those guys didn't need miles. They were so talented. In fact, Chris Cole couldn't run that much. He ran about 30 miles a week.
Wow.
So we were moderate mileage, Daniels oriented. So we did a lot of pace and 200s repetitions and just pretty standard issue stuff.
So as you see here, guys, you don't have to log huge amount of mileage, 50s and 60s, like Coach says. You can, as long as you have that mindset to want to compete, don't let pressure take control of you, like he was talking about earlier. They didn't have a lot of, they had pressure on them, but they didn't allow it to affect them. And then a lot of you guys here you're going to feel that from time to time at races. You're going to feel it from time to time, even in a workout. Making sure, taking what Coach Etheridge said today is don't allow the pressure to dictate the outcome of your workout or races, because you don't need the high mileage to be successful.
Our girls teams, by the way, our high mileage runners, Adrian ran about 50 miles a week. That's my daughter. She was third in AAA her senior year. But our average girls team runners ran 30, 35. And I had some kids girls who just couldn't do the mileage, who did pool running 3 days a week and road running 3 days a week. And these are kids who ran 20 flat for 5K. So
wow,
a lot of different ways you can do it.
Yes. Coach, we appreciate your time. Everyone, thanks for tuning in. I will have this sending out to everybody here shortly. Coach, you take care of yourself and tell the family hello.
I'll do it.
Thank you.